This Soviet female soldier had a peculiar habit. She liked to order German prisoners of war to strip off all their clothes, and then slowly hose them down with water, using it to satisfy desires that had been buried in her heart for many years. Facing the humiliation and ridicule from the Soviet female soldiers, the German prisoners could only endure it silently and helplessly. Little did they know that, after getting through the embarrassing bathing process, what followed was an even greater humiliation, under the unwavering gaze of the female soldiers. The prisoners were quickly forced to put on handsome and eye-catching clothes, completely reduced to playthings for the soldiers to choose at will. As the music gradually began to play, this ambiguous carnival slowly reached its climax. The female soldiers could no longer care about national hatred. At the dance, they openly chose their preferred partners. Those couples, who could no longer restrain themselves, left midway without hesitation. After an entire night of indulgent revelry, the female soldiers reluctantly sent the German prisoners back to their quarters. Even as the gates were firmly shut, the soldiers lingered, unwilling to leave, as if the temporary pleasure could not satisfy them. Seeing this inseparable scene, the guard on duty decided to go all the way and ordered the gates to be opened again. Faced with such an enthusiastic invitation, the German prisoners had no reason to refuse. At this point, only one female military doctor remained without a partner. Just as she was about to turn off the lights and go to sleep, a hurried knocking came from outside the window. She eagerly opened it, and standing there was a German colonel. In fact, the two had already developed feelings for each other. Taking advantage of this perfect opportunity, the colonel no longer hid his impulse. After 2.5 hours, he finally left her residence, satisfied. However, as soon as he went downstairs, he was struck with a brick by another German officer. The attacker carried him to the railway tracks and threw him in the middle, then took out a suicide note to stage the scene, as the colonel killing himself to escape guilt. As long as the colonel died, the identity of a war criminal would fall on him. But the female military doctor had already discovered everything. She rushed forward to save him. As she was about to be overpowered, the colonel endured the pain and fought back. Just as the two were locked in a struggle, two Soviet military vehicles drove toward them. The one who arrived was a bald Soviet colonel, whose main task was to identify war criminals among the German prisoners. With the suicide note found on the German colonel, the truth was quickly revealed. The other officer was the real war criminal. Seeing himself exposed and destined to die, the officer simply stood on the tracks and let the train roll over him. From then on, the female soldiers and the prisoners lived a shameless yet happy life. However, happiness is always short-lived. One day, the female soldiers suddenly received an order from their superiors. All German prisoners were to be repatriated the next morning. At that time, most prisoners were still asleep in tenderness. The prison had to send soldiers door to door to notify them. At first, the prisoners refused to believe it, because they had built their own small families here. Leaving would be cruel to the women and children, but the longing for their homeland and families, along with the forced repatriation, left them with no better choice. These pitiful female soldiers had already lost their families in the war. Yet, because of loneliness, they boldly crossed boundaries that perhaps should not have been crossed, struggling between hatred and redemption. As the prisoners were forcibly sent back, the blade of pain once again hung over their hearts.